This might appeal to some of you guys here. If you get a chance to shake my hand later, you're going to see that my hands are soft and supple. I don't know how to hold a hammer. I've tried. Whenever I touch a tool, I get hurt. So I've never done any of these renovations. I wouldn't have the first freaking clue about doing any of these renovations. I started out doing real estate investing 30 years ago, but when I started doing it, I started doing flips. I had a mentor. I lived in Ottawa, Canada at the time, and I had a mentor who taught me how to do this. And over the years, as I've done more real estate, I've started to buy bigger projects. I've started to do bigger things. Today, I own a network of resorts that we're developing. One of the things you're going to learn about flipping properties this weekend is that when you're buying the property, you want to make sure that you buy it in an area that's desirable for young families. Close to schools, close to amenities. So I use the same idea when I'm buying these old dilapidated resorts to develop. I want to look for properties that are already in demand. And then Diane Rusk a couple of years ago told me about a castle in Prince Edward Island while I was on the way to an event. I knew the place, so I jumped on the phone on the way to the event and bought the place before I got to the event. But my favorite property, I think right now, the one I'm the most excited about getting done, is in Chelton Beach, PEI. So it's on the south shore of PEI. It's a full Nordic spa, 37 cottages, like a little hotel and everything. And this is going to be open next summer. So if you want to get a hold of me next summer, you'll have to come to Chelton Beach because I think I'm going to spend a lot of time there. I want you to know that I'm not somebody that is just trying to make a bunch of money teaching other people how to do something. My main business is that stuff. That's where the fortune is for our companies. What I wanted to do, though, is use this as an example to build credibility with you guys so that you'd be willing to trust me to go on this journey with me, because I think we can solve a housing crisis together. Here's the other thing I want you to understand. The skills that you're going to learn this weekend, if you decide to master them, you can use them to do all kinds of crazy things. The exact same skills that I use in real estate investing to raise money, I've literally bought 2 businesses in the last year doing the exact same thing. So we own a company called Canadian Hot Tubs down in Kitchener, Ontario. We bought it last summer for $1 million. I borrowed that money from other people. They were doing $80,000 a month when we bought the company. Last month we did over $400,000, and we're still growing like crazy. And it's freaking amazing. And then the other thing is I bought a gold mine. Well, actually, I'm closing on it next week. So we have a gold mine in British Columbia that we're pulling about 30 ounces of gold a week out of the ground out there. And it's all the exact same 4 steps. Number 1, find undervalued properties. Number 2, borrow money to do it. Number 3, increase the value of the properties. And number 4, create an exit. It's that simple. You guys excited about going through this information or what? Yeah. All right, good. There's a lot of things that you're going to learn if you join the syndicate, if you get involved in this community with us. And a lot of the things that I will spend time helping you to understand is how to raise money. Whenever you're doing anything in fundraising, I think the biggest piece of advice that I could give anybody that's trying to raise money is understand this. Raising money is like selling things. And if you're ever trying to sell anything to anybody, you have to understand that people will not buy from you. People will not lend money to you. People will not invest in you unless they know you, they like you, and they trust you. And one of the most important aspects to getting people to know you, like you, and trust you is how you communicate with them. And a lot of people that are never taught proper communication skills really struggle with it. And that's one of the things I really love to spend time helping people understand. If you join the syndicate, we do 2 calls every week. They're live Zoom calls. We do one on Sunday nights at 8 o'clock, which is a mastermind call where we come every week and we talk about real estate. And then on Wednesdays at 12 noon, we do a call called the Deal Flow Call. All the people that are in our community that are doing real estate deals, if they have any questions about them, if they need help raising money, or if they're struggling trying to get money, you just show up on the call and we solve problems. It's freaking amazing. And most people will tell you that's their favorite call that we do in the group. But communication is so important in business, in anything you're doing in real estate investing, that I really like to spend a lot of time getting people communicate. And one of the most important things that if you do end up coming on this journey with us and joining the syndicate, that I'm going to help you really get your head wrapped around quickly, is that if you want to succeed in doing this stuff, you have to change your mindset. Because the way most people think is this poverty aspect of their mind where they're always worried about the money that they gotta make and how bad their life is now, and they've got to improve that in their life. What I'll help you to do is to change that around to a giving mindset. That's a big part of succeeding in life. And I'm being reminded of that because Tammy has our whole management team reading a book that talks about being in a great place in your mind and not letting the saboteurs in your mind take control of it. So we'll go through a whole bunch of those things together. So what I really love about this is as I've been teaching people to flip properties and attracting a lot of real estate investors to hang out with me, I met 3 people that were really doing well in real estate investing already and were flipping properties. They blew my mind. They super impressed me. And so I invited them to partner with me, and we would start teaching people across Canada how to flip properties. So for the last 15 years, I've been literally building a following online. If you go to Google and search my name, you'll see it's the first 15 pages of Google. If you go to any of the social media platforms, you'll see thousands and thousands of people following me on all these social platforms. I did that on purpose. But the one place I would strongly encourage you, if you want to build a following, or if you want to see how to legally raise money on a social media page, I would encourage you all to go to Facebook and find my personal Facebook page and follow that page, because all I use that page for is raising money. And you'll see how I do it. So what I'm doing is I'm building a following by posting content and sharing information in an educational way that attracts people to me so that they can get to know me. That might bring them to an event that I'm doing, and at that event they could get to like me. And then if I meet them at that event, I can start building a relationship with them. That is kind of like the basis for how you could, if you wanted to take the time to do it, to legally get a lot of people looking at you and build relationships with more people. Introduce yourself to people that have more money in their lives, because there's benefit for that. If you can build that friends, family, and business associates list, that will benefit you in your life. The other thing that you have to understand, has anybody ever heard the term or the phrase, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with? Has anybody ever heard that before? How many people believe that? I really do. I believe it with all my heart. If you take the time to really start building a profile online and getting people to pay attention to you, it's going to attract better quality people into your life. And when that happens and you start connecting with more people, money reveals itself. All right, so the first thing I want to do is just talk to you about how we finance these house flipping projects at 100% financing. It's very important that you understand the details of how to do this, because this is how you protect yourself if you decide to get into house flipping. One of the things that's really important about understanding how to run the numbers, which that's what this whole conversation is about, it's called running the numbers. If you understand how to run the numbers, you can look at any house, you can figure out what's going to work, you can get into these purchases, you can raise all the money, and you know that you're going to make money in the transaction. You won't lose money. Now, in order to assure that you don't lose any money doing this stuff and you don't make any mistakes, it's really important for you to understand those 4 steps. You got to make sure you find the right property. You want to make sure that the properties are undervalued. You want to make sure they're in the right neighborhoods. Any flip that I buy, I will only buy it if it's in a desirable neighborhood. I will only buy it if it's within walking distance of elementary schools. I will only buy it if it's on major bus routes or transportation routes. If there is a grocery store or a shopping center within a short Uber ride. Because that's what young families in this country are looking for. And I want to make sure that if I'm going to buy a property, then I can sell it in a couple weeks of listing it in any market. It's the specific focus on those things that are going to do that for you. But you're inevitably going to look at a place that you're going to be out looking. It comes through a wholesaler, it comes for however you get it. You're going to be looking at a number, and the location is going to make sense to you. You're going to be like, this is what Ken was talking about. This is the perfect location for this. So now it's going to come down to figuring out if the numbers work. And there's basically 2 steps to figuring out if your numbers work. Number 1 is your appraisals, and number 2 is your comparables. Whenever I'm looking at a property, I have to make a decision if I want to put an offer in on the property or not. So before I'll put an offer in on a property, I'll go to House Sigma, and I love it because I can look at House Sigma and I can see everything that's sold within the last 90 days. So I'm going to go to that setting of everything that's sold in the last 90 days, and I'm going to find 3 properties that are within 5 to 10 miles of the place that I'm looking at that have sold in the last 90 days that are in pristine condition. Because if I buy a flip, when I'm finished with it, it's going to look like a brand new house. So I'm going to be selling a pristine property. So I want to find 3 properties. And then when I find those 3 properties, I'm going to look at what they sold for. I'm going to add those 3 numbers, divide by 3, and I'm going to get that value, that comparable value. So if I'm buying a broken down old house for $400,000, I know generally speaking, in any flip, I'm going to put about $150,000 into it. I'm typically going to spend $100,000 on renovations, and that extra 50 grand is my interest costs. I borrow all the money to pay the interest on the mortgage because I don't want to pay anything. How many people love the idea of doing this and not spending any of your own money? Give you a piece of advice that's not directly related to what we're doing here, but it's this. If you want to become wealthy, learn to invest your money passively and other people's money actively. So use other people's money to accumulate your wealth, and then use passive investment strategies to compound your wealth. The number one passive investment strategy for compounding wealth that I've ever found is doing private mortgages. So today, with all my money that I have, I do private mortgages and I buy fancy things. But for all the projects that I do, I raise 100% of the money. So if I buy this property, and I can do this before I even put an offer in. In fact, I'll do this before I put every offer in. I say, okay, if I buy this property, I'm going to be into it for $550,000 before I sell it. But when I go to sell it, that's how much I'm going to have into the project. I will not buy the property unless I know positively that I can make $200,000 in profit on the flip. I don't care where it is in Canada. And this is what I would suggest you use the exact same numbers. So what that means is, if I'm going to do this deal, I need to see comparables that are $750,000. So when I go find those 3 properties, and I add up the totals that I found from House Sigma, and I divide by 3, I want to see that number is 750 grand. Now, to be honest with you, if my comparables tell me it's worth 730 grand, I'll probably still buy the property. I'll probably still go after it. But that's only step 1. I will never, ever buy a property just based on that. Remember, that's step 1. Step 2 is this gives me the confidence to put in an offer on a property. This part. So from there, I figured out that it's worth buying. The comparables seem to mean it's going to work. So the second step is I'm going to put the purchase agreement in, and I'm going to order a double-ended appraisal. And I now know that this term, double-end appraisal, is a Ken Dunism. I created this term. I thought this might be something they already called it, but I talked to my own appraiser about this, and I said, I want to double-end your appraisal, and he was like, what? But here's what I mean by a double-ended appraisal. When I order an appraisal, so I'll buy this property, I'll put a purchase agreement together, and I'll submit an offer, and the only condition that I'll put in the offer is an appraisal. How many people have bought a house in this room? Did you have an appraisal condition, whether it was your primary residence or anything else? You can put an appraisal condition in it, right? So whenever I do an appraisal, they normally charge an extra $500 for it. So I pay $1,000 to an appraiser, and he'll do those 2 appraisals at the same time for me. And all I do is give him the list of what I'm going to do to make the property better. I just naturally assumed everybody understood this. Because if you think about it, has anybody here ever built a house? There's always a couple people in the room that have. When you built the house, did you borrow money from the bank to build the house? Anybody's out there building their own house and you borrow money from the bank, you get a mortgage to do it. You go in and you make an application. They're called draw mortgages, where you draw money as the work's being done. In order to approve that loan, the mortgage has to go to an appraiser, give them your building plans, give them all your costs, and get the appraiser to tell them how much the house is going to be worth when it's finished. This happens all the time. Just most real estate investors didn't realize you could just ask the appraiser to do it. So I get this double-ended appraisal done, and I always ask for 2 weeks to get the appraisal done when I put the offer in. And there's 2 things I'm looking for. On the as-is appraisal, I want to know that I'm buying the property undervalued. I want to see that that appraised value is higher than what I'm actually paying for the property. And there are times when it hasn't been and I've walked away from the deal. But here's the thing. This is, again, something that most people don't realize. When you put in a purchase agreement to buy a property and you ask for an appraisal condition, if the appraisal doesn't come back with the value proper in it, you can walk away from the deal. Does everybody know that? But here's what most people don't realize. That's not what the purchase agreement says about that condition. What it actually says is, if the appraisal comes back and is not satisfactory in any way to me, I can walk away from the deal. So I literally wait for the appraisals to come back, and if that appraised value is not higher than what I'm paying, I'll walk away from the deal. If the after repair value of the appraisal isn't what I need it to be, I'll walk away from the deal. Now here's the other thing. One of the things Tony said when he was up here is, wholesaling is the only way you can buy properties without a dime of your own money. Does everybody remember him saying that? That's bullshit. You can do any of this stuff without any money. Here's how you do it. It's called an American Express Platinum Card. Does everybody in this room have an American Express Platinum credit card? If you don't have one, go get one. I tell everybody in the syndicate, you need to have one. I'll tell you why. You pay $500 a year for it. So I do 6 to 7 flips a year. I put $1 million in expenses through my credit card, and I take my family on 4 luxurious vacations every year. First class airfare tickets, nicest hotels in the world. An average vacation costs us $50,000 to $100,000 for a week. And it's all through my American Express Platinum card. Not to mention, if you travel a lot, American Express runs a network of the most incredible lounges in airports in the world. They're called Centurion lounges. The only way you can get into one of those lounges is if you have one of those American Express Platinum cards. Anyway, to get an American Express Platinum card, you need a 640 credit score, and you do have to pay $500 a year, but it pays for itself, so it's worth doing it. It's freaking amazing. And if you don't leave here today and get one of these cards, you might as well just go put your head back in the sand. Because it's a game changer for doing this stuff. It freaking works. It's unbelievable. How many people are going to go get one of these cards when you leave here today? I'm telling you guys, it's nuts. Like, who doesn't like free money? It's my favorite type of money, free money. It's great. So all I do when I'm putting these deposits on the properties is I go get a $10,000 cash advance on the American Express Platinum card, give them the money, and then when I get my mortgage money, I give the 10 grand back to myself as part of doing it. Make sense? Okay, next thing I want to tell you guys. So let's say we check the box and both of these come back and I waive my conditions. The other thing about this purchase agreement, number one, I'm going to do a $10,000 deposit, which I'm going to get from my credit card. Number two, I'm going to double end the appraisals. And then the last thing, number three, I'm going to do a 90-day closing. Why do I do a 90-day closing? Why is it so important? I don't panic. If I see like a wholesaler comes to me and say, I've got this amazing deal and the numbers work for me, but it's got to close in 3 weeks, I just say no, I keep moving. Why do I need a 90-day closing? I don't want to be stressed out raising the money. Even if you're inside of the syndicate and you're doing things with our mortgage broker, to get the best rates and do this right, you need time to do this. Because you want to get the first mortgage before the second mortgage before the third. We have a mortgage broker that works with us in the Investors Growth Syndicate. Her name is Felicia. And the last 6 flips that she's arranged, she's gotten a first mortgage at 80%. So when I first put my lender's package together, my business plan, the first page of the business plan is going to say, we're looking for a first mortgage for as much as we can get. And I'll give it to Felicia. And what's really great is Felicia knows a bunch of institutional lenders that don't mind if there's a second and third, and don't mind that it's over because they know it's a flip and they're used to doing that stuff. Remember I said earlier that I borrow 100% of the money to make the interest payments because I don't want to make any payments? I don't actually borrow 100% of the money because I know that I'm going to sell the property and the rest of the interest they'll get back when I sell it out of the proceeds of the property. So I'm only going to borrow enough to make the interest payments for 7 months. The best part is because I've had the 90 days to arrange this, the mortgage broker can normally get all 3 of these mortgages done before the closing so that when we're closing, we have enough money to close and we have the money to get the property done. Now, that's debt stacking, and that leads to an overall lower cost. And that's what debt stacking is, 3 mortgages with ascending interest rates. Can you now see why debt stacking is a smarter way to raise money for stuff like this? If you join the syndicate, I can do this for you as many times as you want a year. We have that many lenders. We have 7,000 of them. Does anybody find it a little weird that we could have 7,000 lenders that would all lend money over the value of the property? Does that seem weird to anybody here? It is weird. Let me tell you why they're willing to do it. Because I told every single one of those 7,000 people that if they're willing to lend the money to you to do these flips, if for any reason you don't pay them back, then I will sign a power of attorney with them. I will use my lawyers to come after you and bankrupt you and take the house from you. So it creates this really nice symbiotic relationship where everybody who joins the syndicate, they don't fuck around. You make sure you do these deals properly and you let me look at it and give you advice along the way. Because if anything goes sideways, it's going to be me that comes after you, and you wouldn't like that side of me. I was a homicide detective and a SWAT officer. I know how to make people disappear. But I'd never do it. And here's the best part. We have done this hundreds of times in the syndicate. The people that you heard talking earlier that said they've done flips since they've joined, we've gotten them all the money. This is real, and we have never had one deal go sideways.